I love the energy in here. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first iLead Speaker Series event of this academic year. My name is Dina Patterson, and I'm the Executive Director of Development at MIT Sloan within the Office of External Relations. iLead is MIT Sloan's premier speaker series. It celebrates leaders like Audrey who are transforming entities, communities, and organizations in a dynamic and complex world. It is our pleasure to host this event in partnership with the MIT Leadership Center, as well as the following student clubs: the Entrepreneurship Club, the Sloan Women in Management Club, and the Retail and Consumer Goods Club. We are absolutely delighted to be joined today by Audrey McLoghlin, CEO and founder of Frank and Eileen, for a conversation moderated by Susan Brennan, our very own Assistant Dean for the Career Development Office at MIT Sloan. Before we get started, here's a few housekeeping items. We will open up for questions following the conversation. We are recording the session, and you can access the recording following the session via Sloan Groups. And then finally, there will be boxed lunches that will be available for everyone to pick up on your way out the door. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Tara Manesh, MBA Class of 26, co-president of the Retail and Consumer Goods Club, to introduce Susan Brennan more formally.
Hi, everybody. Susan is the inaugural Assistant Dean of the Career Development Office at MIT Sloan, where she leads a team of 30 professionals supporting career growth in students and alumni across graduate business programs. Susan is a respected thought leader in higher education and a certified career coach, bringing 30 years of experience in career development, team building, organizational culture, and leading global institutions. As a strategic leader and change agent, she has spearheaded the CDO's transformation and champions MIT Sloan's mission to develop principled, innovative leaders. And this is what the iLead Speaker Series is about. So we're thrilled to invite speakers like Audrey, who are striking examples of what principled, innovative leadership looks like. I will now turn it over to Jalissa Higgins, MBA Class of 2026, who will introduce Audrey McLoghlin. Thank you.
Audrey McLoghlin is a former engineer and Georgia Tech graduate with a heart for entrepreneurship who founded Frank and Eileen in 2009 with a mission to reinvent women's button-up shirts using menswear Italian fabrics. The brand has grown into a woman-owned B Corp certified leader in sustainable fashion. Audrey has maintained 100% ownership while partnering with ethical manufacturers since the company's inception. In 2020, she launched the Frank and Eileen Giving Pledge, committing $10 million over 10 years to help create more women entrepreneurs through education. And this year, Frank and Eileen recently doubled its giving pledge to $20 million to support female leaders. As part of this broader initiative, Audrey began her relationship with MIT in 2021 by generously supporting MIT Sloan by establishing the Frank and Eileen Female Leaders Fellowship, an endowed fellowship that will live in perpetuity to support women MBA candidates for generations to come. In addition to supporting fellowships, Frank and Eileen has also established a partnership with the Trust Center to fund the entrepreneurial education of young girls by adapting Bill Aulette's Disciplined Entrepreneurship for young entrepreneurs in grades 7 through 12. Audrey, we're so grateful for your support. Now in its second decade, the Frank and Eileen brand continues to champion timeless style and female empowerment under Audrey's leadership as a mother, founder, and CEO. What you may not know about Audrey is that naming the brand Frank and Eileen was a deeply personal tribute to her Irish grandparents, Frank and Eileen McLoghlin. Audrey infused it with a sense of heritage, love, and timelessness, which continues to shape its identity and values today. I hope you enjoy this engaging conversation with an inspiring, principled leader. Over to you now, Susan.
Thank you so much. Am I good? With Mike? Let's make sure we're good. Okay. Hello. I think we're good. I want to make sure that Mike is on. Okay. Okay.
It doesn't sound on.
Let's see. All right. We are good to go. Jalissa, Tara, thank you so much for those wonderful introductions. Audrey, it's such a pleasure to see you in person. We met about a year ago here on campus, and so exciting to see how our relationship with you and with MIT Sloan has evolved. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, wonderful colleagues and friends and our colleagues from OER for this fantastic iLead partnership. I will say that the mic is still miking. Just so everyone can hear. Okay, we'll do this. So, how's that? Okay, we are good. My motto is I put the T in MIT. So when I was asked to moderate this fireside conversation with Audrey today, the first thing that I did was go online. So I'm just going to start with that and pull out this amazing experience that I had, which was, I think I need to do market research. So right away, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. But truly, I wanted to share what an incredible experience. Raise your hand if you've had a chance to get a Frank and Eileen box in the mail. It is just such a heartwarming experience to be able to open this box and to see the heritage, the design, the warmth, the love, to have a letter that says, "My dearest," and to see Eileen, Frank and Eileen's story, and to see the design and the care and the warmth that comes and what you do. And the T and the T. Oh, yes. So putting the T in MIT. And these heart teas. And you'll tell us more about everything that is in this box, but I just couldn't not go shopping, and I'm looking forward to wearing my treasure. So with that, I will kick us off. And those of you who work with the CDO, you know the first question you're always asked is to tell me about yourself. So let's start with that. Just a few minutes, high level, tell us about yourself, your leadership and career journey that's brought you to today.
It's been so long, right? So now I have to really condense it down. But, which I ultimately named Frank and Eileen after my Irish family. So my family's all from Ireland, and both sides of my family still live in Ireland. So only my parents left a few years after they got married. So I've always felt like my heart is in Ireland. And so when I was young, we had no community and no family structure because my family was all in Ireland. So we grew up very isolated, and I didn't know anyone to, kind of look up to, I guess. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. You guys are like 100 steps ahead of me. But I just loved math, so I thought, well, I should go to engineering school, and that would be a really good way to train my brain to think. So I lived in Atlanta at the time, so I went to Georgia Tech, and I studied industrial engineering. And after I graduated, it was 1999, so this is like ages me, but it was the first .com boom. So after I graduated, I moved to Boston, and I worked for an MIT startup, and that was my first ever exposure with MIT. And I did that for a while, and then for any of you that, I guess were old enough to remember or lived through it, the whole .com thing burst. And as that was kind of imploding, I thought, well, what's the silver lining of this? Like, what do I want to do? And do I really want to be in engineering? And I really loved, I think, manufacturing and process. I also loved textiles. And so I said, well, I'll just pack up everything I own and move to Los Angeles and learn about manufacturing. So that's what I did. And I somehow stumbled into the fashion business, and I've been there ever since. So that's my whole life story in 2 minutes.
And so much more to unpack. The engineering, industrial engineering, seems like it's had a big influence on your career. Can you talk more about that?
I mean, I think so. It's only now, I'm 48 years old now, and I feel like it's only just now that I'm starting to actually really understand and appreciate how all of these things that happened, whether it's 35 years ago or 25 years ago, how they were actually kind of all these breadcrumbs of life that were going to start to connect together, but there didn't seem like there was any connection at the time. So that's been really kind of fun to reflect back on, where maybe an experience you had when you were in high school, and then that ends up leading to something else. And I don't know, so it's kind of wild how it all finally starts to kind of connect together. But I think industrial engineering for me was just like a really great education, right? I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so even when I was at Georgia Tech, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, I had no vision of what I wanted to be when I grow up. I just kind of wanted to build something. I'm not sure. So I think I just liked how it trained my mind to think, and this irony of ending up in the fashion business where I had no exposure to fashion. I think I thought Patagonia and Gap was fashion. So, really I did. So, I had no exposure of any kind. And so, but I think, now over the years, I've heard over and over in the fashion industry that I do things very differently than everyone in the fashion industry. I think very different. And I think part of it's because I didn't know what the rules were. I mean, I had no idea what you're supposed to do. But I think also the way I come at problem solving, and always kind of partially as an engineering mind and partially as an entrepreneur's mind. And that just ends up guiding me, I guess.
So with the entrepreneur's mind, you mentioned the dot-com bust, and then Frank and Eileen was born during the downturn of 2008. So what gave you the confidence to start something at that time?
There was no confidence. That's not a word. If I had to choose 100 words, confidence wouldn't actually be on the list. So, to paint the picture, right, it was 2008. So, when I went through the dot-com bust, I was so young. So I came out unscathed. That was fine. Unlike 2008, where the whole world was collapsing, right? So it was the greatest financial crisis of our lifetime. And I had started my first company that was named after my mom. And that was collapsing while I was also being sued by the largest fashion brand in the whole contemporary space. So, the world was on fire around me. And, I just got up every day and carried on like it was Tuesday. And one day I was at a factory working on something completely unrelated. I was working on tissue weight cashmere because I love sweaters when I'm always hot. So anyway, and the whole thing was a disaster. It was TOPs coming in, and they didn't match spec, whatever. But while they left me in this conference room for way too long, I started snooping around and just pulling a bunch of stuff off the shelves. And I pulled off this book of these little tiny, honestly, 1-inch squares. You guys, 1-inch squares of these Italian menswear fabrics. And I died. I was just oh, and I just needed to run out of there. So the guy finally came back. I'm like, can I borrow this book? And he's like, it's so old and irrelevant. I was like, great. So you don't mind if I borrow it, is what you're saying. And that's it. It was not like there was confidence. I was just so excited about what I found. And I was like, why are these fabrics not used in the women's business? My first business that was in flames was I had 4 multi-brand retail stores. So I was in retail, and I love retail. And, so I saw every brand and every collection in the whole marketplace, right? That was part of my job. Going out to New York and LA and Europe and seeing everything that was out there. So I knew there was nobody that was using these kinds of fabrics in women. So I said, well, I just want to set out to reinvent the button-up shirt for women using these insane menswear fabrics. So it's a really interesting question. I'm giving you a very long answer, but confidence was not part of it. And I hear it all the time. I don't even think I had the luxury to think about it. And I certainly didn't indulge in overthinking any of it. And I think often people, in fireside chats or asking questions, I think people find themselves really overthinking it. They're looking for the confidence, or they're looking for what's the sort of risk to success ratio, or how do you know when it's time to leave your full-time job to do something? Don't think about any of it. Just do it. My sister says, be like Nike, just do it. If you're excited enough about it, you don't need any confidence or anything else. I don't know, just do it. You're going to fail. Everything's going to burn down in flames, and you'll start over. It'll be fine.
It will be fine.
Eventually, it will be fine.
So what advice do you have for students, especially at this uncertain time, about just do it? How to think about whether starting their own ventures or being bold and charting their path?
Yeah, I think that's my advice. We're in uncertain times now, but on some level, we're always in some kind of uncertain times. This is not nearly as bad as it can get, so just enjoy it, because it can get so much worse. But I also think, I'm obsessed with silver linings, right? I think there's silver linings to everything. So I think all of, anything that's going on at any given time, there's opportunities in it. In the Great Recession, what the silver lining is? There's nowhere to go but up. You don't have to worry about, it just can't get any worse than this. The whole place is in collapse, So, I don't know, I just, if you're excited about something, just do it,
Find the book in the conference room. So I love a good acronym, and when I opened my box, I saw the acronym BETTER. Let's see if I got it.
Oh my God.
B Corp empowers women, transparent, traceable, ethical, and responsible.
Wow.
Yes. So let's start with B Corp. Why is that, first of all, the highest score of any global female-owned retail omni-channel brand?
Yeah.
125.5, I think, is the current score.
Our current score went.
So
I think
that's
5.
well, we round up. So
Like we're at MIT, we round up.
that's amazing. But what does that really mean? You know, why do you start with the B Corp, and why
Yeah,
is it so
so
important?
B Corp was another silver lining, I would say. So B Corp came out the next crisis, which, you know, was a little close to the last one, to be honest, like a bigger space between catastrophic crises. But so it's March 13th of 2020, which everybody here lived through, right? So, and in our world, it was, I mean, the entire, every store in the globe closed down in like a 10-day period. So for us, we lost about 90% of our orders in 10 days. Like, I mean, we were worried we'd become insolvent. Like, what are we supposed to do, right? The world ended. Talk about uncertainty, right? That's nothing like what we're going through now. Like on March 13th, if you had a business, I mean, you had no idea if you could open up. You had no idea if and when you could bring your employees back. Depended on the state you lived in. I mean, it was crazy, right? So, you know, 2020, I think will go down in history as the hardest year of my life as an entrepreneur. But again, it was probably only 10 days till I started sniffing around for the silver linings, right? The first 10 days I locked myself in a room and did damage control with supply chain and like redid everything and tried to figure out how we could save all of our global partners so that they're there when we come back and need them, which we had no idea when that would be. But, you know, the second step was like, what's the opportunity here? And what are the silver linings? And so at the time I had, you know, what I was reflecting is I'd always felt like we operated with a really strong set of values. And I was getting really agitated of all the greenwashing going on and all the, you know, marketing about all the stuff about sustainability. And it's like, but you know that company's not truly doesn't value sustainability, but just because you have one item that you put a billboard across all the cities does not mean you really value that. And so, and I think I always thought, I feel like we operate at a level that we could be B Corp certified. But we didn't have any time. It's like insanely documentation heavy. We didn't have the time or resources to do that. So I had thought about it a couple times and sniffed around just enough to know, like, well, I don't have time to do that. So when March 13th, 2020 happened, all of a sudden I couldn't commute to work. I couldn't be on an airplane every week. I couldn't be in in-person meetings. I couldn't travel. I couldn't do anything. So I said, oh, well, my first silver lining is a resource that I didn't have before, which is time, like a lot of time, a lot of focus time. What could I do with time that I didn't have before? And so I said, okay, now I really think I can invest that time in becoming B Corp certified. So we started immediately on the huge process and just like heads down, let's go through the huge process to get B Corp certified and kind of turn it in. And it reminded me of that feeling of applying to college, right? Where you're confident, you're like, I really think we operate like a B Corp. I really think I could get in there, right? But as soon as you apply, then you start like second guessing it, right? Like, what if they reject me? What if we just did all that work and they say no? And all these things, right? And so we kind of spent the whole year doing it. We turned in our application, I think in October or something. I can't remember. But at the very end of the year, we got our letter back, or our acceptance letter. But in the acceptance letter, not only find out we got accepted, which I was just, you know, phew, but we got the highest impact score of any woman-owned apparel company. So that was shocking, right? And I was like, I got to verify this for a while, like, you know, but they post all the scores. So we did that, and then you have to get recertified every 3 years, and so we got recertified now. We still hold the highest score, so that was wild. So, but, you know, in it was like, oh, wow. So not only are we operating at the level of a B Corp, but we're really outpacing, you know, all of, you know, our competitors, everyone except Patagonia, Yvonne's got everyone beat. Okay. But they've been doing it for a really long time, and so they really, everyone knows their values. But so when it happened, right, and it was at the very end of 2020, thought, well, this seems like a really big deal for my team, what they've been through this year, and these team of warriors have survived this year, and we were actually in a really strong position ending 2020, and we'd gotten this B Corp certification. So I thought, well, I really want to slow down for a second and figure out how to commemorate this. I really like having symbols of things, moments or successes or something. So I thought, well, what can I do that I'll never forget this moment? So thinking, and I was like, what if we establish a giving pledge? So that's what ultimately had me create the Frank and Eileen Giving Pledge. So on that day, at the very end of 2020, I said, I'm going to pledge $10 million over 10 years to help create more women entrepreneurs, because I think that one single thing will change the world. So that's it. And then I woke up the next day like, how do you give away money? It just took me forever to figure out how to make money. Now I have to figure out how to give away money, and it's a really big responsibility. And so ultimately that so I started thinking. I think I spent I'd spend basically between Christmas and New Year's in deep reflection every year and planning and commitment. So I think I spent that year thinking about who am I going to give it to? How am I going to make an impact with this pledge? How can I be helpful to create more women entrepreneurs? So I thought, well, the easiest way would be figure out, because I have a day job. How do I figure out who's already doing the best job in the world at creating entrepreneurs? And I can partner with them and help make a bigger impact. So I Googled, because I didn't have my friend ChatGPT yet. This was in 2020. And I Googled what are the top 3 higher education, teaching entrepreneurship. And it came back, Babson number 1, MIT Sloan number 2, and Stanford number 3. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to call those guys. So, and I said, what if they don't call me back? I don't know, okay, but if you offer people money, they always call back. So I learned that. Okay. So, so ultimately our, step 1 with my relationship with MIT was just kind of, telling them what I wanted to do, and said, well, how can I help create more women entrepreneurs? So we talked and decided to set up this endowment in perpetuity that would give fellowships, basically scholarships to women that wanted to pursue their MBA and become entrepreneurs. And so that was the way we started our relationship together.
So, well, I got my MBA at Babson, so I think that one's okay too. We are so grateful for your commitment to the female fellows here at Female Leader Fellowship here at MIT Sloan, and it has a tremendous impact. And we've worked with many of these women along the way, so they're just fantastic leaders, and it will be sustainable and their impact in the world as principled, innovative leaders. So just when you think about doubling that pledge, what are you hoping for the impact to be?
Well, that was really fun, right? Because at the beginning it was so daunting. We laugh about it, but I really was I have no idea how to give away money. And it was a huge learning curve. And, basically Babson and MIT really are the 2 people that taught me about giving away money. But once I figured it out, then all of a sudden we had planned, I wanted to make a commitment I could keep. So we said, well, 10 million over 10 years. I have no idea how, I got to make the money to give it away, right? It's like a whole building an airplane as it's flying entrepreneur situation. So I was like, well, I'll say 10 years because, different years. What if you have a good year, a bad year? But we ended up giving it away in 4 years. So we were like, oh, okay, I got kind of good at the giving away money thing. And so in January of this year, in 2025, we said, well, let's double down on the original pledge. And instead of giving away 10 million over 10 years, we'll give away 20 million over 20 years and, deepen our partnerships and stuff. So.
Fantastic. Well, we have time. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and I'm going to turn it to our audience. So the first one is, we often hear as you're balancing work and family, you can have it all, but maybe not all at once. So I wonder for you, as you think about integration of family and work and life and your engineering mindset, sort of how you think about doing it all?
Well, I probably have strong thoughts on all of this. One, I don't believe in balance, and I don't want to talk about it. And my whole life, Audrey, you need more balance. I said, listen, you need more balance. Please don't put your needs on me. I don't need balance. I don't believe in balance. Okay. I think if you're lucky enough to do what you love, it's all one big mushy thing, right? And we all have the same number of hours in the day, right? It's just how do you want to use them? And I just personally think, and the older I get watching everyone try to achieve balance, I just think people set themselves up to fail by trying to think there's such a thing as balance. Second, I have a thing, I'm sure you can, Google it or ChatGPT it, but I put out a good article once about my 3-bucket rule. So I tell people, like, you this thing of you can have it all, like, okay, maybe you can have it all, but not at the same time. So you got to, like, really pace it out. But there's no world in which again, we all only have the same number of hours per day. It's just not possible. So I've since was very young, like in undergrad, always had this theory. People would ask me all the time, like, I don't understand. How do you do it? How do you do it? I was like, well, first of all, I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. And I'd work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's technically plenty of time to do it all, right? Like, I'm not really sure. Okay, but then fast forward, right? So I would tell people, like, I just have a 3-bucket rule. Okay, you can only have 3 buckets at a time to do things well. You can give 100% to 3 buckets. Now, the challenge is, especially for women, that 1 bucket is self. Okay, but women have to really focus on that because they just give that bucket away and they fill all 3 buckets up and then they end up, burning out or something. But men always fill their self bucket. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. You guys are really good at that. Okay, the self bucket is always preserved on the man side. But for women, right, self is everything. I'm talking about getting enough sleep every night and getting exercise and, like, just taking time for yourself to, like, think or read a book or all the things that when you get to that point of having kids and stuff and thinking you do it all that stuff just, like, goes out the window. But if it does, the whole thing will fall apart eventually. It's not a sustainable thing. So you kind of really only get 2 buckets. Okay, but self is a really specific one, and I think you need to, like, really fill up your own bucket so you can take care of the other ones. Now, for me, the way I got through most of life until I had my daughter was I just filled up 2.5 buckets with work, and it was great, right? I mean, that's like the ultimate entrepreneur. Like, you just shove everything in those same buckets, like 2 and then half, and I would do half self. But it was really, everything was for me anyway, so I was fine, and I didn't need balance. But it gets really challenging, like, if you want to have a family, right? Well, like, if originally 1 bucket was self and 1 bucket was, like, work, and you felt still like you had extra time, so you could fill it up with other things. But then you got, like, a husband bucket and a kids bucket and a work bucket, what happened to myself bucket, and then you freak out. Now you're sharing buckets, and, like, so then you're like, you tell your husband, like, look, you can't have a whole bucket anymore. You get half of a bucket, and, like, it just becomes this, like, disaster, right? The husband's upset because he used to get a whole bucket. And he's like, what I signed up for was a whole bucket. And you had your own whole bucket, and work got a bucket. Everyone was happy, right? Now he gets, like, a quarter of a bucket. If you guys have ever seen that really funny CEO of Pepsi where have you ever heard her? And she's like, my husband gets upset that he's not number 1. She's like, you're so lucky you're on the list at all. But it was really funny. But, yeah, so I think thinking about how you're going to fill those buckets, so especially in entrepreneurship, right? It's a very demanding, like, 1 bucket, really not enough, okay? So it's got to go into some other bucket. So I do think it's really, really hard to say you want to have it all at the same time. But what I will say, so I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she thinks she's ready to take over the business. So we have huge car talks about, like, employment law and margins and strategy and all sorts of stuff. It's really fun. So that's like a shared bucket, right? Because I enjoy that, and that's my child bucket time. But for me, I had to really set up a system and have to not care about what anyone thinks, right? Like, don't let anyone judge you about what your system is. You have to set up a system that's sustainable and works for you. So I'm a single mom, so there's no one else in the house but me. So I said, well, I need somebody from 6 in the morning to 10 at night. That's my system. So you need a village, right? And some people have free villages, volunteer villages. Mine's all paid villages, okay? So someone comes from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and someone comes from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that way, what if I get on a flight from Boston to go home today and my flight's delayed? Like, really, what are you supposed to do? Like, I don't have any family, I don't have support. So I know it's okay, someone's there till 10 p.m., and in worst case, that person's ready to like sleep over, right? So just have this system that you don't go into damage control every day and you're not like pulling everything out of your self bucket to give to everybody else. But you know, I think it's I get judgment, and I don't care anymore. People be like, you have 2 nannies? It's like, really? But who's supposed to be there to take care of my child? Who's supposed to pick her up from school if I get stuck in a meeting or I'm traveling? And like, who's going to make food? Not me, right? The other day, I heard someone ask my daughter in an elevator, they said, does your mom cook? She's like, no. And does your mom, what else they said? Ask like 3 questions, and she said no to everything. And they said, or is your mommy good at cooking? No. They asked like 3 questions. They said, what is your mom good at? And she's like, money. Well, like, okay, it fixes a lot of problems. You can figure that out. You can only figure out one thing.
We'll drop the mic with that. Very, very good. Well, I'm going to just wrap up here to talk again with gratitude for your commitment to MIT, not only philanthropically, but also as a mentor, going back to school, going to Bill Aulette's class.
Go to Bill's class.
Since our last conversation, sponsoring a capstone project on demand forecasting with our business analytics students, so very much a part of our community. So I want to thank you for that, and just share, you know, any takeaways that you have about your relationship with MIT and Sloan.
I mean, it's been so satisfying, I think, you know. I think of my relationship with MIT or anyone else like I think about entrepreneurship. It's like first test and learn, and then strengthen strengths, right? So we like test and learn with, let's just set up an endowment that will go on in perpetuity, and that's like very gratifying in and of itself, right? I'll be long dead, and amazing young women will be changing the future going through MIT. And then, you know, testing and learning, like, okay, well, what else can we do? We can do a capstone project together. We can do this, that, and the other, and just spending more time with both, you know, really inspirational MIT students and faculty. And then I don't even know how it happened, but Bill and I found out we had a shared electrical passion for changing the world through entrepreneurship. So we've been working, you know, feverishly on this huge project that's going to launch next month. But really, basically, you guys get the inside scoop, but we're going to take disciplined entrepreneurship, which Bill teaches here, just take his class, but we're going to adapt it to young people. So we're going to adapt it and use all the AI tools that have been built with Bill and his team and the curriculum, and adapt it to 7th to 12th grade students. Because to make a very long story short, I've just really found through the different work that I've been doing with different ages that if you can get in there and change a young person's mindset of how they see themselves in the world and what they think they can do, you get them early, and that's going to change their whole trajectory of life. So we want to be able to bring this unbelievable work that is currently only accessible to the, you know, top 1.1% or something of people that get to come to MIT, but we want to really kind of be able to democratize it and bring it to younger minds and change the world that way.
Thank you so much for this conversation. This is a great opportunity to now open it up to our audience for your questions, and there will be mics. I think you have mics at your seats.
Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this inspiring conversation. As a mom myself, it's very empowering to listen to you. Thank you. I have a question about how you are facing this competition from globalization, because there could always be, like, you know, just stuff that's not so high in quality but much lower priced and so on. So how are you dealing with that? Because you have a big passion for the sustainability and you really care about the ethical practice, I can see. So isn't this like two contradicting worlds? How are you dealing with it?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it doesn't matter the industry, you're always going to have competition, right? And I think, again, go to Bill's class, because I went yesterday and he talked a lot about things that I think would answer this, but I think really figuring out sort of like what you do better than anyone else, like what is it that you offer, right? I don't compete on price. If I did, I'd be dead, right? So that's a whole different world of competing on price. But you have to really figure out what, like who are your personas, what customer are you serving, and what are you giving her that she really wants and or can't get from other people. And I think just really knowing what that is, because otherwise, if you don't know, right, you might try to be everything to everyone, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, look what's going on over there. I need to compete over there, and what's going on over here, and that's a disaster. So just figuring out exactly who you're trying to serve and know everything about that customer and what they want and how they're changing over the years, and then just stay connected to your customer.
Thank you.
It sounds like your company was clearly founded on really strong core values. So as you're growing, how do you ensure that you keep your teams maintained to those same core values?
That's a great question. And I have to be honest, I had no idea we were founded on strong core values, okay? Right? I mean, conference room with like clouds on the wall, book in the room. Like this was not a disciplined entrepreneurship situation, okay? But it's just how I think, right? And I didn't know it had terms of, I didn't even know the word sustainability. It's like 2008. Like I don't think we even had that word back then. But so it wasn't so conscious. It was just that's just who I am. But as the business grew and it got more complicated and there were more people involved, I think that's when I had to really start thinking about, almost more than anything, how do I attract the right kind of people to be on my team to do this with me? Because at some point I can't do everything anymore, especially when I had my daughter. Like all of a sudden, the number of people I had to hire to replace myself in that moment. But when you can't do everything anymore, then finding the right people who have the same values, I think that's what forced me to define what those values are. And to circle all the way back to what Susan said, I think that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to become B Corp certified, because that helps sort of signal to the type of people that would want to be part of what we're doing, right? So they come in for interviews, and in an interview, why do you want to be part of Frank and Eileen, right? And the kind of things like, I would love to work for a woman-owned, woman-led company. I would love to work for a B Corp certified company. I'd love to work for a company that doesn't have investors and boards and owned by private equity and looking for the next transaction. So you set up this kind of world and you attract the kind of person that wants to be in your environment, and they tend to be much more successful, I think, in staying long-term.
Hi, my name is Charlotte, and this is my business partner, Dan, and we're both working on a startup for women's workwear also. And my question is, at the beginning when you transitioned from industrial engineering to fashion and retail, how did you start a company with limited industry experience in that field? And then how did you get trust from investors, and how did you also learn to trust other people when you don't necessarily have the information or the knowledge to show that? Because we're both military veterans and we're just really excited about it, but we're not super familiar with that industry.
When I was in elementary school science class, the teacher had a filing cabinet that had a sign that said, "Ignorance is bliss." And I just stared at it all the time. I was like, what does that mean? I had no idea. Why am I every day I stared at it? What does that mean? And I realized it's the most important saying of my whole life. Ignorance is bliss. That's really important. I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And the thing is, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? I think I don't know more now than I thought then. But the thing is, if you're really passionate, at least my experience, right? I didn't know anything, but I found people who are extremely good at what they do, right? Whether that's development, production, and they feed off your passion. So I learned everything I know from people that have been in the industry forever. And you listen and you absorb and you just hear everything. You're learning everything from them, but you also think differently, right? You're going to be able to apply the discipline and everything that you learn here, whether engineering program or entrepreneurship or MBA or whatever program you're in, and kind of find your own formula to it. But especially when you're a young person starting something, I don't mean young in age, but a young entrepreneur, people really want to help you. Like, people will let you away with murder. They'll help you a lot, and you got to take advantage. I remember always telling my team, like, guys, the party's over. Like, you can get away with a lot for a long time because you're the new person, you're this, that, and the other, and then the day comes that it's like, you're the man. It's over. Yeah, different set of rules.
Hi, Audrey. Thank you so much for being here. So as a founder and CEO, how involved are you in your design process of your products? And then how do you balance that, these really high quality products that you're providing through your brand with really fast trend cycles?
Okay, I'm very involved. I'm very involved in everything still, kind of surprising of the scale of the business. I'm very involved. But we've always been a product-first company, right? When I started the company, not only did I not know anything, but I didn't have a dollar to my name. I had negative a lot of dollars. So, and when you ask, well, I don't have investors, so I've never dealt with that. Sorry, I forgot that part of your question. Which, if you can do all this and avoid having investors, glory, greatest thing ever. And sorry, what was your question again? Oh, about product development and stuff. I'm very involved, but I say I'm a product person, but I don't even know where that came from. I just made myself a product person, but we didn't have any money. So we certainly weren't a marketing company, and we certainly weren't we didn't have anything. So it's all about the product. So, when I started, it was all about finding that Italian fabric and reinventing the button-up shirt for women and making it, very sexy and wearable, and it was permanently crinkled. And it was just product first. And then it was okay, then it's all right, well, now who's going to distribute this product? What's my distribution channel, and who are my customers, and all of those kind of things. So, but I've always stayed very, very close to product, and it can depend. Now the collection is monstrous. We launched with one SKU, and I only had one SKU for 5 years. 5 years. So I would tell people oh, are you the designer of Frank and Eileen? I'm I guess so, but I probably spend 10 minutes designing the collection, and I spend the other thousands of hours trying to figure out how to build a company and run it. And, it's still always a really small amount of my time, design is. But, and now it's much more, data oriented and all sorts of stuff at scale. But yeah, I'm still really involved in it. And I think we also just try to ignore trends. Again, same thing as I'm not in the business of chasing and competing price, and I'm also not in the business of competing on trend. We're just very close to our customer and understanding her, even in all the different, communities across the country and world, but just really kind of trying to understand what she needs and what does she want next and what is she not getting from other people, and just keep serving her. And yeah, I don't know if that helps.
We have time for one more question. I'm going to say Jay.
She's wearing the Monterey.
And then the Monterey if we have time.
Good save.
Just curious how your leadership team has adapted its decision making as the company changes. Do different people get involved, and how do you see your role as part of the decision maker as well?
What's the question again?
Just curious how your leadership team has adapted its decision making as the company has evolved. Are different individuals getting involved in each decision? Are you still maybe the central decision maker? Just curious how that's changed.
I'm not going to say this elegantly, so you can Google it or ChatGPT, but with startups, I think there's all these, there's these levels and you hit a wall. So everything, the hardest thing in the world, in my opinion, is starting something from nothing. There's not many people that can do that, right? But the team that can be with you, which might be 0 people, might be half a person, might be 1 person, might be 2 people, but that kind of little core group of warriors that can take you from 0 to something, they're most likely going to have a really hard time when you hit that wall, and everything you did to get from 0 to something is basically designed to break. It's not going to work anymore. So to get to the whole next level, you're going to need different skill sets, different processes, and a lot of the times the very thing that got you to that level of success will hold you back or break. I always just say it's okay, it was meant to break, it's designed to break, right? So let's say you can make it up, but in a company, 0 to 10 million is going to be one group of skill set and or people. And what's really hard is some of the people that you really value for getting you there can't get you from 10 to 50. And the people that can get you from 10 to 50 might not be able to get you from 50 to 100 or 200 and then 200 to 400. So I think, so yes, forever you probably don't have a leadership team. I didn't have a leadership team for at least 12 years. Like, what do I need a leadership team for? I don't know. You have partners that are the best in the world at what they do, and you can make all the decisions at some point of either revenue scale or people scale. You'll need to layer things in and then figure out, obviously you need to empower people that are better than you at things, right? I got to hire a CFO that's better than me at finance, and I got to hire, and then let them help with the decisions in their area of expertise. But ultimately, you're always going to make the final decision.
Can we do a lightning round with our friend in the Monterey?
Thank you so much. Hi. I'm also
Yeah, okay. I'm also wearing the Westport jeans, by the way. So
stand up. More than that.
So I'm your persona. I really love your product. I also started a company, fashion company, but it failed, and I'm kind of proud of it. I think my question is, I reach out to a lot of people, and everyone tells me their idea, and you should do this, you should do that, you should follow trend, your brand is not good enough, and this and that. So, as a woman, how do you block out the noises?
So that's really a big deal. You're going to make me kind of cry. Don't worry, my first 2 companies failed, okay? Different levels of spectacular failing, but both ultimately failed, right? And fashion, by definition, it's a really hard business, right? And fashion is fickle and all the things. But anyway, it's also, operationally, it's a really hard business. And everybody wants to tell you their idea. Everybody wants to tell you should do this, and my wife thinks you should do that, and my sister thinks you should do this, right? So, and who was it? The retail guy from Apple that stood up and said, this was so long ago, right? But he said one of the big things that he learned from Steve Jobs was it's more important what you say no to than what you say yes to. So when I started Frank and Eileen, right, no money, no connections, no network, no friends, nothing, okay? But I was like, I have this idea to make this shirt. Okay, it took me forever to make the first one. It took me 6 months to make the first pattern because, just nobody cares about me. So, but went out to launch it, and it was interesting because certain little things happen, right? But I launched business to business, okay, which was much more the clear path back in 2008 when I was launching. But I still am a huge proponent of that, okay? That's when you don't need to raise money, just go business to business. So that's a whole other fireside chat that I'd be happy to have. But it was interesting, to make a long story short, but we ended up becoming huge in Japan. Okay, we're the number 1 brand in Japan. And the Japanese retailers are the best in the world. They have the most unbelievable taste. And they would fly all the way over to Los Angeles, and I'd be wearing my 1 SKU. And inevitably they'd be like, Audrey, we want you to make that pant and that sweater and that, my whole outfit, right? Make the sweater, make the pant, make the shoe. No. I make shirts. That's all I make. I make 1 shirt. Our button placement is all the way down at the apex of the chest. There's no buttons here, right? So how many thousands of times would customers say, can you just make a shirt with an extra button up here? No. If you want an extra button, buy a shirt from someone else. Our shirts do not have buttons there, right? So I don't know. You have to know exactly what you think you can do better than anyone else and focus on it long enough that you've built a big enough foundation. Because, to tie back to your question, forever I would tell people, I spend 5% of my time designing. Am I the designer of the whole company? Yes. Back then. Yes. I spend maybe 5% of my life designing, and the whole rest is everything else. So it's so by having 1 SKU, that allowed me to spend all of that time focusing on the sort of the foundation of the business. How do I build something that's strong enough to layer on top of it? But most of the time people layer all this stuff and there's no foundation and the thing falls through the floor. So I don't know if that helps the answer, but.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you so much. You are truly a force for good. This was a fantastic conversation. I know everyone wants more, but there is a class coming in.
Thank you for your support.
So thank you so much for your support. Big round of applause. There are some who have signed up to have lunch. If you are able to join, please come down here. Otherwise, enjoy the day. Thank you so much.